Makers Church. This is Testimony Tuesday. I'm Pastor Glenn.
And I'm Martha.
And I'm going to be interviewing Martha today.
And I'm going to be interviewing Pastor Glenn.
Now, Martha, there's a couple of reasons why we're seeing your beautiful face here today. One of them is that you are one fascinating woman. And I tell you, people are going to discover things about you today that they had no idea that you were able to do. And also, you're going to be filling in the future on future Testimony Tuesdays and interviewing people. So I wanted people to know something about your life behind the scenes, as they say. Now, thank you for being here today. One of the reasons that we're going to be here today is that I am going to, well, I guess yesterday I did retire. And so we're going to get a little more information about that. But there's going to be people I know that are cheering. They're thinking, oh my gosh, he finally did it. About time and all that, but I'm not going away completely. So you need to stick around to the end to hear exactly what's going on. But first of all, let's focus on you, Martha.
Okay.
Who are you? Who are you? Where did you come from?
Well, I grew up on the East Coast. I was born in West Virginia and grew up pretty much my entire life until I moved out here 4 years ago. In Virginia. So yeah, been an East Coast girl, now transplanted out here, and I love it. It's been so much fun living in California. But yeah, I'm originally from the other side of the world.
Oh, okay. Well, before we get to that, what do you do right now at Makers? You do a lot of different things and have done a lot of different things. What are some of the things you're doing now?
Yeah, so I was hired onto Makers staff in December of 2018, and I've been doing a couple of different things. Like you said, I started out initially working with our creative team and our communications team, and I was kind of overseeing that, and then transitioned kind of right before COVID started in January of this year. I transitioned to our production director, and just sort of our director of, Sunday experience. And then we all know what happened in March. So a lot of stuff has changed production wise. So I'm actually stepping into a new role this fall as our administrative director. So I'm going to be overseeing a lot of our internal and external communication systems, and still working with the creative and communications team, but just kind of taking on some new roles and new tasks. But I'm excited about it.
You are a woman of many talents. Now tell us what you do professionally. Obviously, you have a professional job that
Right.
you do. What is that?
So in my full-time job, I actually also work with churches. I do project management for clients that are purchasing a particular website product. I work for a company called Ministry Brands, and it's basically a large company that's comprised of a lot of different brands that do online giving, website, all sorts of technology pieces for churches and faith-based organizations. So not only do I work part-time for a church, but I also work with churches on a full-time basis as well. And I've actually been doing that for a little over 12 years now.
Wow,
and I've had a few different roles within my company, but yep, that's what I do for my full-time job.
So speaking of church, when did you come to have faith? What's your childhood like? Were you a rebellious child like we might think, or what?
Well, I actually was, I grew up in the church. My parents were actually saved in their early 20s, and they raised my brother and I. We went to church pretty much every time the doors were open, it seemed like, but we went to a really small Baptist church when I was growing up before we moved to Virginia, and that's where I was just first introduced to faith and, just all of those things, and children's church that a lot of us I know who grew up in the church are familiar with. So I did commit my life to Christ when I was 5 years old. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me, just kind of from the beginning. My parents were, very much just wanting our family to be part of the church. And so that's what we did.
I hear you have some amazing parents. Just amazing.
Yeah, my parents are awesome. They really are. They celebrated their 45th wedding anniversary in June. So
Wow. Wow. That's
very,
great.
yeah, very lucky to just be a part of something like that. I mean, I know that, more and more in today's world, we don't hear those stories very often. So I'm very, very grateful to have them as parents. They're awesome.
So where did you go to college after high school? Where did you go to college? What did you do there? Did you?
I did, yeah. So my parents were living in a small town in Virginia, which is where I grew up. And right before my freshman year of college, they actually moved to a different town in Virginia, the capital city of Virginia. It's called Richmond. And I was going to school in the Northern Virginia, DC area at George Mason University. My brother is exactly 4 years older than me. So he also went to George Mason. And my brother is married to his 8th grade sweetheart, who also went to George Mason University. So yeah, it's pretty much, a family kind of a place for us. And it was interesting. I wasn't really ever intending upon going to the same college that my brother did. It just kind of happened. He was studying computer science and minoring in music. And I knew that I wanted to major in music. My parents were very supportive of that. And they had a great music school there, and it was in state, which, as most of us know, it's a lot cheaper to go to a state school than, to go somewhere out of state. So it kind of sealed the deal for me that I, ended up going there.
So you were majoring in music, right?
I was, yeah. I spent the first 2.5 years of my undergrad majoring in music education, and got to the point where it was kind of like, do or die. It was either I was going to move forward with being an educator or I was going to do something else. And I'll never forget just kind of having this sort of like crisis moment where it was like, I don't think I want to be a teacher. And the county where our university was is actually one of the highest ranking counties in the nation for music education. And there's just a lot of things that come along with that, and I really wanted to teach on the high school level, but I had no experience in marching band, which is a huge part of high school music education. And so it just wasn't fitting, like all the pieces weren't fitting together. And my school had just started offering something called arts management, which is more of like a nonprofit management focus, but it's fully with arts organizations. And the more I learned about that, the more it just kind of sounded like something that fit a lot better. So I ended up still majoring in music, but with a concentration in arts management. And that's
Arts
what I finished
management.
Mm-hmm.
What do you?
Yeah.
So what would you manage?
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people ask that. So basically, any type of arts organization, so orchestras, playhouses, think of things in San Diego like the San Diego Symphony, the Old Globe, the Hoya Playhouse, all of those different things. Those things were a huge part of my life. Honestly, from college up until the time that I moved out here to San Diego, I was very, very involved in different arts organizations in the DC area. I actually interned at a place called Wolf Trap, which is the only national park that exists in the US for the performing arts.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's an amazing venue. And so I was able to intern there during college, and I actually have a very dear friend who works there now. So that was a really cool place to just be a part of something like that is so unusual and doesn't exist anywhere else.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so after school, after college, then what?
Well, I mean, most people get a job, right, out of college. But I decided that I wanted to go on and do more school. So I applied to graduate school, and also at George Mason, because at that point they had been offering a graduate program in arts management. It was a 2-year program. And it just, again, it felt like the right fit. And so
I knew you were brilliant, and now it's coming out, these advanced degrees and all this kind of stuff. You could be managing the Old Globe, all this stuff. But now we talked before, something happened on the way to grad school. Something I mean, you go ahead and tell us what happened. What significant
Mm-hmm.
thing in your life?
Sure. So I was driving to my grad school orientation. It was kind of in, I would say, like the mid to late afternoon. And I was driving down a road that I had driven down dozens of times, if not, hundreds of times. And just kind of out of nowhere, I was making a left turn yield on green, and I was hit head on by a Ford F-150 pickup truck going about 45 miles an hour. And it was just something that just was truly an experience that changed my life. I think before anyone, before we go any further, I did actually walk away from the accident with no major injuries, which was amazing.
That's
So
crazy.
yeah, it's a true
I mean,
miracle.
any type of head-on collision like that in those days would be instant death. What happened?
Well, I mean, honestly, I just think it was the grace of God, that kept me safe. It was just kind of the way the car was hit. I wasn't hit on like my side, if that makes sense. So as I was turning, the car kind of hit on the passenger side. So if someone would have been sitting in my passenger seat, they would have died instantly. So I'm just so grateful. I was living with some girls at the time who were also going to grad school. And so there was probably a good chance that one of them could have been in the car with me. And, thank God that they weren't. But it was just one of those moments, I think we hear a lot of people say, I saw my life flash before my eyes. And, I think many of us are probably just like, that sounds crazy. Like, that isn't something that really happens. But I'm here to tell you that it actually does really happen.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I mean,
goodness!
when I was hit, I can just vividly remember just kind of this weird replay of scenes and people, and just
Really?
it was very strange. Like, I can't even really describe what I saw, but it was just something where it was like, and the car kind of did a 360 in the intersection. And I, of course, being the dramatic person that I am and have watched way too much television and movies, I thought the car was just going to burst into flames. So my instant reaction was like, I have to get out of the car. Like, it's going to burst into flames and like explode. So I literally just like the airbag deployed, the car stopped spinning, and I opened the door and got out. And I was standing in the middle of the intersection, and I saw this guy who had also gotten out of his car, and he was standing there like as white as a sheet, just like looking at me in this disbelief of like, how is this person like standing? I was in total shock. I was injured. It just was not like a serious life-threatening injury. So yeah, it was
Unbelievable.
just crazy.
Couple of this sets off some memories for me. I had a roommate in college that got hit head on and died.
Wow.
And yeah, and then I also was in a wreck, and I ended up in a field of bulls. It was in Texas. I went through some barbed wire. There was sparks on my hood when I was going through it, and I too thought the car was going to blow up immediately. So I got out and started
Yeah.
running. So
It's just really, it's weird what like shock and all of that does to your body, when you're going through that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, I think coming out of that, one of the things that you and I had talked about was just kind of like the day after the car accident. So my parents lived close enough that they were able to drive up. And I mean, at that point, they didn't have a lot of information other than I was being taken to the hospital and, all these things. And so, long story short, I had 2 sprained feet, which is kind of a strange injury, but it was just kind of the way the car hit and was crunched. And I had some bruising kind of all over my body, but again, it wasn't anything that was life threatening. I mean, I left the hospital that night and I went home, and the next day, I think for me, I just really wanted some closure, and I just wanted to like see the car and just sort of like grab some things out of it that I wanted to keep. And so we drove to the tow yard where the car had been taken, and I was on crutches, so I was moving a little slow. And my brother and sister-in-law came with us, and they, they had walked out to the car before I did, and the gentleman who had come to tow the car away kind of came running up to them and said, oh my goodness, like, how is this, the girl that was driving the car, like, is she okay? And they basically said to him, well, she's standing right over there. And he just kind of looked over at me on my crutches, hobbling along.
Oh my goodness.
And before I reached them, you know, he told my brother and sister-in-law, he said, I've been doing this for many years and I've seen all different types of cars in the aftermath of accidents. And he said, when I came to that car, I knew that whoever was in that car was dead. Like there was just no question in my mind. And I wasn't, and I'm not. I'm still
Thank
here.
You,
so I think yeah, I think for me, hearing that from someone, you know, who sees this kind of stuff all the time, it was just sort of, it just really sunk in that like I should not be alive. And I think what that did for me personally was it just really reinforced that I have a purpose on the earth. You know, and I was just, I was kind of in this state of like, I want to recommit my life to the Lord, you know, whatever that looks like. And it wasn't anything that was this grandiose thing. It was more just like an internal, like, understanding that, you know, life is precious and mine could have been taken away like that. And the Lord kept me here. And so I think it's just given me a lot of purpose moving forward from that day of just knowing that, you know, I shouldn't be here for all human, you know, knowledge.
Right.
And I've been very, very grateful to be able to continue, you know, living my life and just figuring out, you know, why God has me here. And it's been a really, really interesting journey.
I'm speechless. That is so powerful. No, it's as you know, same with me. 6 years ago, I had a heart attack and died.
Right?
But it changes your perspective
Mm-hmm.
on life, and it's hard to, unless you've been through that like you have. It's hard to explain. But it's one, I'm thankful that you're here. But two, it does change your life significantly.
Yeah, it does. And I remember right around that time, I read a verse in Psalm 37, verse 5, and the words are, commit your ways to the Lord, trust in him, and he will act. And so that's sort of just been this verse that's kind of been, you know, rumbling around for since then, of just knowing that, you know, I don't always get it right. I get it wrong way more times than I get it right. But just knowing that, you know, our commitment and trust in the Lord, we will see him act in major ways in our life if we're open to it. And so that's just kind of something that I've really carried with me.
Wow, that is fantastic. Fantastic. So you survived, you go to grad school, you get out of grad school, then what happens?
So I stayed in the Northern Virginia, DC area until 2016 when I moved out here. I got an opportunity with my company to relocate, and that's just a whole separate story that we don't have time to get into, but that was just a really, just a tremendous God thing that I ended up here and have the opportunity to come here. And yeah, so I basically just uprooted my life, all that I'd ever known on the East Coast, and I just moved here to San Diego.
And did you know anybody out here? Did you just, no family, no?
Yeah, there's no family out here. My closest family is up in Seattle. My cousin and her husband live up there. So I do have a little bit of family on the West Coast, but not anywhere close to here. And yeah, I knew, so I was going to be moving in with a girl that was an acquaintance of mine. So like I knew her through other people, and we had spent some time together here and there over the years. She's also from Virginia. So it was kind of nice to have that familiarity. But other than only meeting my new coworkers for a week in January, so like 6 months prior, I didn't know anybody here in San Diego.
You're a courageous woman.
Either courageous or crazy, like those two.
What about makers? How did you find makers?
So I was living up in Encinitas for about 10 months when I first moved out here, which no offense to North Park and Hillcrest and all of that, but I will always have a soft spot for living up there. I wish that I could live up there and have all my people like closer to me. But it was really awesome. I'm so glad that I got to live up there. But yeah, I mean, while I was living up there, obviously I was working, and my boss at the time, I knew that he was going to Mosaic. And so I had heard of the church, and knew that it was, I knew a little bit about it. And then I guess it was probably about maybe 2 or 3 months after I had moved here, I had a friend from Virginia who reached out to me and said, hey, I have a friend who lives in San Diego, and she's kind of coming back to church after being, not really going to church for a while. And she's kind of looking for maybe a buddy to go with her. Like, would you be interested? And so I thought, why not? I hadn't really found a church that clicked yet. And so I reached out to her. And it turns out she was also going to Mosaic. And so it just kind of, that's how it came to be. She and I started going together, weekly. And so, yeah, that's how I ended up at, our community.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think you told me you were kind of on the sly there at first. You didn't just burst in the doors and say, here I am.
No, definitely not. I just came to church and left every Sunday. I didn't engage with anyone because back in Virginia, I had been a worship leader at a large mega church for many years. And I feel like I just needed a little bit of a break just to kind of recalibrate and figure out what I wanted to be doing in this new space and this new season. And obviously worship is a passion of mine. I mean, worship leading is a passion of mine. And I wanted to do it, but I wanted to kind of do it organically. Like, I didn't want to just walk up to somebody, like Pastor Mark, and say, hey, I'm a worship leader, and, all that kind of stuff. So I just really was kind of praying, and there was people praying back in Virginia that, I would find the place for me and in what ways that I could be serving. So
great. What a great story. What a great story. And how much time we got? Oh, we're running out of time. Tell me what you like to do for fun. I hear you're something about the Pacific Crest Trail.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've really become passionate about, recently is hiking. I've always kind of low-key loved hiking, but some of you guys know Emily Norton, who's a member of our church community, and she's a very, very close friend of mine, and she's done a hike with Make-A-Wish for the past 2 years. And I decided this year that I wanted to train with her and do it. And Corey Dunton was also joining us. So the three of us kind of formed a little team, and we were preparing to hike a 28-mile portion of the Pacific Crest Trail in June of this year, which unfortunately due to COVID that was canceled. So we're actually doing it again next year, the three of us, which will be really great. But yeah, I mean, I love to spend as much time outside as possible, whether that's hiking or walking or, going to the beach and things like that. But yeah, I just like to be, kind of out and about when I can.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, Martha, you told me that you like to interview people more than you like being interviewed.
Yes, definitely.
So, in fact, you told me that one of your fantasy jobs growing up was to be a talk show host.
It was, yeah.
That's impressive. How old were you when you started saying, I want to do that? Were you watching TV?
Probably it was, watching way too much TV in the summer, and I think I was probably in elementary, late elementary school, where it was, I would watch Regis and Kathy Lee at 9 a.m. in the weekday morning. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, I will let you ask me a couple of questions.
Sounds good. Yeah, we're going to switch roles. So
yeah.
I heard a rumor that you retired. So I wanted to ask you, is that true?
Yes, it is. I officially retired as of yesterday. And I'm going to be off the Makers Church payroll instead of North Park Baptist and Makers paying into my retirement. Now retirement fund is going to be paying me. So that's a big thing. So after 22 years of being pastor here, it's time. It's time.
How are you feeling about all of that?
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Probably a lot of different emotions.
I'm thrilled. So here's the deal. I am so excited that God brought Makers and Pastor Derek and Shalise and Pastor Mark and you and the whole staff and all. To me, that is just almost a miracle how he brought us together, how our visions are so together. So I am so excited. I am so excited to see what the future is going to be. I have such a peace about it. It's going to be great. So that I feel really, 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 really good about that. But
yeah, so tell us, like, what happens now? Are you leaving? Are you
well, that's
staying?
the thing. So if I had to just stop, that would be really hard because I love everybody, and so Pastor Derek has allowed me to remain as everybody's pal, pastor at large. And so what that'll entail is I can keep praying for people 24/7. If you're heading to the emergency room at 2 in the morning, call me up. I'd love to pray for you. I'm also here for any type of pastoral care, organic mentoring, especially for our leaders. And then finally, I'm going to minister the word. There's opportunities that I can teach small groups and stuff like that. So I'm here for good. I'm here for good. So
Yay. That's so awesome.
yeah.
This has been so much fun chatting with you. Thanks for having me on here. This has been really fun. Fun fact, I'm the person who edits all of these videos and have been this whole time. So I've kind of felt like I've been part of it this whole time. So it's kind of fun to be on the other side of it.
It's so much fun to have you be a part of this now. You are such a natural. And so this is going to be great. Your fantasy of being a host is coming true. So
it's here.
Any final comments before we go?
I don't think so. Just, sending so much love out to the people who are watching this. I know we can't see each other in person all that often, but just know that you are loved. You are being thought about by all of our staff team. We pray for you and we love you. And yeah, we're here for you, whatever you need. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Amen. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you guys.